If you're new here, first of all, thank you so much for clicking on my video and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to give you an update, and just so you're aware, Patreon members, we did just post the daily expected moves, and I'm going to give you the daily expected moves for Friday for the SPY and the Qs right here in this video. And if you've been around for a long time, hey, this thumbs up is for you. If you were sticking around while we were playing around with stocks in this area, catching these kinds of bounces and always talking about the fact that we are highly probable to go make a new all-time high, what have we just accomplished? And thank you so much for paying attention. Look how our hard work and our diligence has truly paid off. So give yourself a big thumbs up and a pat on the back. Today, we are going to be getting into some technical analysis for a bunch of stocks today, as we notice that we are getting a daily move outside of the weekly expected move. Now, what do we always say about weekly expected moves? Well, 68% of the time you land inside of those, but 32% chance to see something crazy as we gravitate towards the monthly. We need to talk about this and see what is the most likely thing to happen from this standpoint. Are we about to just see this thing go off into the unknown, or are we going to do the more likely thing, which we're going to bring up in the first part of this video? So let's get into it. From the daily chart, one thing about making a new all-time high as of right now for the SPY, well, we need to be paying attention to one thing on the chart, and that would be risk. I mean, this is a serious upward move. I mean, pullbacks would be invited, but we notice that this MACD is still by the center line, so we need to be watching just in case we actually see that daily chart curl down. We start to lose these moving averages and break through this channel, because we would have some form of divergence. Most likely this will take some time, because on the 2-hour chart, we actually do not see any kind of weakness in momentum here. Now, if you wanted to say, hey, this might need to back off and it's running out of gas for the first leg, I would be kind of with you on that. But the 2-hour here, it is just suggesting that, hey, we might be tapped out at some point, but that's the important part. This is not something that we are condoning a bunch of short positions at this moment. I think this is an okay time to do that, but at the same time, this is called a short squeeze. We were going through during this time and showing how bearish people were getting into February, right? The February contracts with almost 6 to 1 and 7 to 1 put to call ratios on the SPY. And that means for every 7 people or 6 people that are shorting this market, there's only one person with calls. So which way do you think investors could be tricked? Well, that's a move to the upside. It added more credibility to the divergences that we're seeing down here at these levels, and more credibility to the little head and shoulders that convinced us, hey, this is most likely going to see some upside, and we're going to end up at new all-time highs. So thank you so much for being a part of this community. I really do appreciate it, and it's awesome. Thank you for leaving a like on this channel. But still, from this standpoint, you would say a reconnection with the 5 at some point is the most likely thing, right? This is a very strong move. If it wanted a minor pullback, then we would say the 5-day moving average is where it would head to. Now, one thing to be clear here is we've seen this gap up through some important levels, right? Breakdown areas, right? We gapped down below this area before. So this area could be considered important. And if we are going to see a pullback soon, I would be looking at this area towards 595 and all the way down towards 590. Now, that's just clear it up. But this is the most probable thing going forward, is we can see some kind of 2-hour pullback. And that could be in the form of sideways price action. That could be in the form of a brief pullback. That could be in the form of a bigger one. So we just have a job of paying attention to the risk to reward. And as of right now, the monthly expected move is telling us that the risk to reward, the risk is getting bigger, because we are at the top side of our monthly expected move heading into the end of the month. As we gravitate towards that, hey, we only have a few days left, and that could end up pulling down anywhere in this area. And as we are outside of the weekly, we can see that the risk going into tomorrow is, hey, is the reward very good to the upside, or is there risk of a 68% chance that we're going to end down in these areas? So we need to go into a 30-minute chart. We need to talk about it, because as of right now, we were pointing out the fact that you had divergences and you keep violating those. And that is really what happens in a short squeeze. And this is why we don't condone shorting a short squeeze, because you're going to see all kinds of divergence up here. Now, if you were going to, I think that this moment is something to pay attention to. Still not condoning it too hard, but we're going to talk about volatility later that actually has a signal that proves there might be some weakness in momentum here for that 2-hour pullback. you notice that the MACD, even with the strong push, was not able to curl up. We notice that we are making forms of divergence that actually are proving on the MACD and the RSI, possibly at the same time starting off tomorrow. So we'll be paying attention to that. We have daily expected moves to help us out. So we do have 612.47 to the upside, getting us up to that 611.03. Where did we say we were most likely going to go once all of that was done, basing out at the lows there? 611.03. We were thinking very logically and just keeping our head on our shoulders and thinking with our head, making a plan and executing that plan, and we have done that very, very well, taking profit at the weekly expected move. I don't need this extra little bit. When the risk starts to get very high, then you're going to see a 2-hour pullback. The downward expected move, 607.03. So if we're just going to see some kind of lackluster pullback, some kind of retest or something like that, this is where we can gravitate to. If we're going to continue the upside, and then when you need to watch out for divergence for that 2-hour pullback, this is where I'd be paying attention to the upward expected move. And if you want a brief summary of what these expected moves do, it goes the same for each one. The time frames are just different. So for the daily expected move, this is our 68% zone with a 32% chance to land outside of it. And usually the times where you're landing outside of it, you're seeing something crazy, meaning what are we seeing right now? We're seeing a short squeeze. That is considered something crazy. So don't be surprised if we do end outside of that zone, but just know we are marking this area up here off as the overall danger zone. So the most likely area to end the day tomorrow is actually right in this little sliver right here. Isn't that funny? Something that would really cause some disruption in the market, and I think we need to talk about just for a brief moment here. Just to bring it to your attention, if you want to look into the information tonight, we do get the inflation rate year over year for Japan, right? We get the Japanese inflation rate year over year, expected to come in at 3.2. Previous was 2.9. So if it does come higher, they are a surefire thing that later on in the night, they are going to raise rates around 9 p.m. Most likely if this does come out higher. So we will be paying attention to that. That can cause some turbulence in the market, some volatility. But let's keep our heads straight. Let's understand that the most probable thing from this area is we do not see reversal signals. So if people overreact or react to that in some way, and maybe it's justified, hey, that would be overall considered, I would say, a black swan moment for our stock market because we do not see any kind of reversal signals at this point. So we'll be paying attention to that. So still going into tomorrow, I want the mindset of a pullback is very likely. And all I can do is sit and go, hey, I like my profits now. We caught the trade. Now we want to see, hey, when is the next opportunity? And this is the exact wrong time to suggest that this is a great opportunity for upside. If anything, this is saying the better opportunity is whenever, even if it's up here, if that wants to pull back or even go sideways, whenever the MACD is down by that center line, we can look for reversal signals and see that curl up into positive territory for this run to continue. This is where it does get a little bit sketchy because we need to be aware. We still want to be aware if we're about to go into a extremely volatile market, and you do have a chance here where if the Qs are not able to make that new all-time high, you actually would have the structure of a potential major top. Now, I know I'm saying that, but the structure of the 2-hour, we're going to go over that in a minute for the Qs. So just hold tight because is this the most probable thing? No, but we need to be aware of it. So we're going to talk about it first, and then we're going to talk about the more probable things for the Qs. But this is something we need to pay attention to. The SPY going to make that new high. The Qs, if they can't make it there and they start to roll over and cross down on this daily MACD down here, how close are you to the center line? Very close. And this would be considered, in my view now, as a lower high, especially if you're able to cross down and take out this low. And that's going to be an important thing. The only reason I really can come up with for this happening, if we did see some kind of dramatic downturn from here, is one, the structure between the SPY and the Qs, right? The SPY is the Qs are diverging from the SPY, and the other thing being, hey, we get news about Japan later on today, so we will be paying attention to that data. I will be looking at it and maybe posting to Patreon my thoughts based on it and looking at the reaction in the futures market. But what is the most probable thing as we hit a weekly expected move? Well, we have to understand that if we're bullish this week, if I have expirations for, say, tomorrow, I have to understand I'm running my head into a weekly expected move. That is as high up as the options market. We calculate the options market. Well, that's how we get these numbers. We calculate using the options data to get us that 68% zone. And I give that out on Patreon, and we do that for daily expected moves as well. But we do notice that we are heading up to the weekly expected move, which means we have a 68% chance to land below below this purple line by the end of the day, and that's something we need to pay attention to. So the most probable area to land tomorrow is actually this little zone right in here, just so you are aware. But we need to pay attention to, this is a great run, and we are getting a couple readings of overbought. We could be making some potential divergences up here at this point. We don't want to read into those and be like, yeah, I'm going to bet my house on it, because this is very, very bullish, and all it needs to do is hold sideways or pull down maybe even briefly to the 5 to turn back up into positive territory. So that's what I will be paying attention to. That or some kind of retest down at lower levels, right? Anytime this MACD curls up, I'll be happy and say, hey, that most likely is all the pullback that we are going to get. This is an extremely bullish move at this point. The 30-minute is what I wanted to pay attention to for tomorrow. If we are going to set a trap early on in the morning, wouldn't you like a level to pay attention to? Well, I'll give you one. 536.51 to the upside. We do have 528.77 to the downside. If you've taken the course down in the description, the 90% off, New Year, New Me course, the sale is still going. If you've taken the course, what are we looking for at these weekly expected moves? Well, we're looking for very clear reversal signals. That's when a trade setup is really there. Do we have very clear reversal signals at this point? The answer to that question is no, but we could potentially go make them. And that's where we're going to pay attention to these daily expected moves down towards 528.77. There is not a lot of implied volatility tomorrow. So if Japan does shake things up, we can see a pretty aggressive move, and we'll be paying attention. This is just a moment in time to say, hey, we might need to take our foot off the gas. We know this is an extremely bullish move, but we're looking for that 2-hour pullback so that we can have that next good opportunity. Even if this decides to go higher first, I'm not going to FOMO into something when the 2-hour chart just looks like, hey, I need to pull back. So what we're looking for is possible divergences on the MACD and RSI at the same time. That would be a great hint that that 2-hour is going to roll down, and then we can go from there. And we will be continuing to update you every single day. We will be going over the bigger time frames if we do experience a bigger drop on Saturday, so make sure you are subscribed. Apple, first of all, important things to note about Apple, and I'm just going to let you know, you might want to join the Patreon if you decide to trade Apple. Now, we were looking for that bid down towards 220. Hey, the reversal signals in here didn't work out. Aren't we thankful that we're able to manage risk at some point, right? This is a trade that didn't necessarily go well for me, but we noticed that in these areas, hey, this was always a risky play, right? This is what we were mentioning multiple times. We were like, Apple's either going to be a fantastic play or a very risky play, and we knew that going into it. So we were downsizing the position, always thinking about risk. So what is this 30-minute chart telling me at this moment? Well, first of all, if the 2-hour is curled up, which it is, then we always have the chance to see some kind of counter trend move for a moment here. But we need to be paying attention to if that 2-hour does ever cross back down. And the reason that we're talking about upside is because if Apple decides to participate here, the 30-minute is technically telling you, hey, I am curled down near negative territory, right? In negative territory, actually. But if it wanted to go higher, we said this thing will need to make a higher low, or it will need to make some kind of divergence to convince us that this is a strong base. This is kind of giving signals like it is going to attempt to be a higher low, which means this can build up over time. The only problem with this overall move so far is it seems, even though a little bit bigger swings in this overall move, it still seems relatively controlled. So you need to really see some bullishness kick in for Apple to see extreme upside. One thing to note about Apple, by the end of the month, you are looking at the monthly expected move. You are well outside of that. So just be aware that Apple could land outside of the monthly expected move, and that would make sense. But if I see some kind of structure going into the end of January, hey, it potentially has earnings, right? We have earnings coming up for Apple, so I'll be paying attention. And this is how the overall bullishness can continue, and Tesla is really showing us some form of that at this point. We actually do notice something here. Now, we did point out the fact that Tesla had divergence at the highs, right? We pointed that out with the MACD. We were like, it doesn't look like the best, so that might just be a quick retest of the 5, and it ended up being a retest of the 5 at this moment. You saw that curl up, and it curled back down in negative territory for the potential double dip. Now, down in these areas, I want to connect these a little bit for you right here with some drawings, because you are noticing a reversal signal here, and I wonder if you can spot it, especially if you took the course. I wonder if you can spot it. It's not the best reversal signal in the world, but you are noticing some divergences here for the RSI. You can notice that the price action was heading down, but the RSI is overall heading in the upward direction, meaning you do have a form of reversal signal down here on the RSI. I wouldn't say it is the strongest, so I would be paying attention to my risk if that is going to fail. We do have to take into consideration something here. Tesla is showing you a reversal signal. That can play out, and that's fantastic. But we also have to notice that this could be a form of head and shoulders. And the other thing we need to consider is the SPY and the Qs are both at their weekly expected move. So Tesla here, you do need to open it up. You do need to go to a 2-hour chart and realize that that is turned down. It is by the center line, so that 30-minute divergence could be telling you that's about to go. But the state of the SPY and the Qs, you just want to be aware if that continues to go negative from this area. We want to consider the fact that the daily chart has, as of right now, rejected on the MACD. No curl up for Tesla just yet. So we're paying attention to a reversal signal. Do I think this is like the best trade setup in the world? No, because it's not on both indicators at the same time. Something we talk about is having reasons for the trade, right? Reasons to take a trade is very important. It's something we discuss heavily in the course, and it will really help you in really saying, okay, these are the exact things that I need to happen in order to take a trade. And then we teach you how to manage that trade. So Tesla, very, very interesting setup. Am I willing to put money behind it at this point? No, I'm not. Even if it ends up in the upward direction, hey, congratulations if you're in Tesla and you see some upside. But for me, it's not a good enough setup at this point. I'm just enjoying my profits from this overall squeeze. This is what takes us to Amazon. Now, I'm once again going to use Amazon to point out the risk, right? The risk of something really bad happening as you are making new highs. If something randomly comes out and happens, I'm just pointing that out because of the potential for the yen carry trade playing out tonight. I just want to pay attention if that daily MACD can cross. Now, Amazon's actually closer to crossing that daily MACD than you think, but we really want to see a closing below the 9 and the 20 is overall going to make me say, okay, now we can maybe test that and head to lower levels. This is overall a divergence that could be forming. It could have more upside, and that's what we're going to talk about next. The 2-hour, if we're going with the simplest side of things, then we're looking for a 2-hour pullback. This thing has gone up into overbought territory and an extremely bullish move. Thank you, Amazon. Can we just say thank you in the chat for Amazon? Because look at the divergences and notice when it actually played out to upside, what did you have? You had it right here on the MACD and the RSI at the same time. Now, they were kind of flat, but we were really liking the flagging, so we were paying attention to it. Thank you, Amazon, for giving us very clear signals. It was fantastic. But now we're running into what? Weekly expected moves. I mean, I actually put out a video on Patreon this afternoon talking about how a lot of these stocks that we took good plays in are outside of weekly expected moves, and we don't like to see that because it invites a pullback going into options expiration. So that's all we're talking about there. The most likely thing to happen at this point is some kind of retest of lower levels. I think this level right here of 228 for the 2-hour to pull back to head higher, because this right now doesn't seem to be the best opportunity. Would I take calls right now? No, I would be waiting patiently for that pullback, and the people who are patient in the markets and really wait for the proper moment are the people who can make good money, and that's just the truth of it. So what could we see in here that tells us, hey, is there going to be a 30-minute or a 2-hour pullback right now? Well, the 30-minute, we can look at the 30-minute. We can understand we're outside of a weekly expected move. And if tomorrow we see the 30-minute go up like this, very, very bullish move. The bullish move can continue, right? It always can continue. What is it? It can continue to go. The market can remain unpredictable for longer than you can remain solvent. So we're looking for some sort of sign of weakness on both our MACD and RSI at the same time. And I think Amazon would be a good one to keep on your radar for that moment. And then we might see that pullback down to the 5 or down for some kind of retest. But all we're really saying is this is a very bullish move, and I'm going to trade the trend, meaning I'm going to put more money behind bullish trades, which means for me right now is a time to be patient and wait for what? 2-hour pullbacks. And weirdly enough, NVIDIA is giving you that same signal as well. I know we all want this to go test that high and go higher, but the problem here is the positioning of the 2-hour was pretty low. This thing needs to probably let off the gas a little bit. Now, we want to look at the 30-minute for that and show, hey, doesn't that look just like Amazon? These things are looking very similar, so we can pay attention to very similar things, and we don't have to talk about it a ton. What I would notice for NVIDIA is the daily chart was able to curl up into positive territory after a massive drop, right? After a massive drop, and we were telling you guys how this really looked like we were solidifying a higher low at this moment. So what we're paying attention to is, can we remain curled up? Because if this curls down, that means bad things can potentially happen. You can start to take out lower levels, maybe test 125. But at this moment, it's just curled up, right? These are all things to react to. At this moment, we want to pay attention to the fact that you have a good shot to still take out this high with this daily MACD curled up. And so if we want a really good shot to take out that high, well, then we might need to experience a little 2-hour pull back in order to head to the upside. But first, we may make that 30-minute move higher to show us that sign of weakness. And now you start to see how complicated it gets to try to short a lot of these things when they are in a short squeeze. Shorts can overall fuel a short squeeze to remain even crazier for longer. So shorting short squeezes, very, very difficult at this point. That's why we don't necessarily condone it on this channel. Trust me, I've made the mistake before. I've been in those shoes. But we can notice that if we remain very calm with it, we can sit, we can be patient, let this stock do what it wants to do, and wait for the good opportunity, which right now I believe would be some kind of 2-hour pullback that curls back up into positive territory for NVIDIA. AMD doing some different things, right? There are forms of divergence down here, very interesting. Like if you look at the daily chart, you're going, wow, what a divergence we have. So AMD most likely does have some more gas left in it. And we notice that the 2-hour is not even overbought. Now we have crossed through the signal line there. We are still holding up above the 5. We just retested that. So I am kind of thinking the 30-minute wants to make that move higher. But if the 2-hour wants to back off, if this crosses down, it's a little bit closer to negative territory. So just be aware of that. The buying here really seems pretty controlled. I mean, you do have buyers that come in, then they sell. Then buyers come in, then they sell. Then buyers come in, then we sell a little bit, right? It's kind of a little thing here, but you're overall in this channel, and if that channel breaks, you can see some kind of higher low at this point. That is what your 2-hour MACD is telling you right here for AMD. The 30-minute, though, if we do want to make that next move higher, we do notice that we do have actual divergence at the same time on the MACD and RSI for the 30-minute for AMD. But we just got that test of the 5. If we see a strong confirmation up, we can always go make a third divergence. We're always paying attention to how we can get screwed. That's why we made a whole video in the course about how you can get screwed and how you can overall manage your trades. That's a big deal. I talk about how to physically manage your trades while you're paying attention to them. So because I'm not someone who all the time likes to use stops, I just shared that with the community and people loved it. So if you learn how to manage risk, you will be better than 90% of traders out there. I'm definitely confident in that stat because most people don't pay attention to that. They just take something, they hope it goes well. When it starts to go wrong, they just hope. They hope it turns back up. Stop hoping things turn up and start taking control of your trading. If you want to take better control of your trading, that is why the course is 90% off. When the market gets choppy like this, I like to give discounts on the course. Get it while it lasts because you're going to have to wait a full year before you can get that full technical analysis course again for just $100. Meta on the daily scale. I really do like this. I actually like the fact that we've piled up and then we launch through, right? We have a lot of things going on in here, but it's ending up being a solid green bar above this. I mean, it really is pointing in the upward direction. So all I'd be paying attention to, and the only thing that's worrying me are the signals here for Meta. The 2-hour is something to pay attention to at this point. We do see potential for divergence forming right now, not confirmed. Very blatant not confirmed. So I'm just pointing out something in case I need to react if I am in calls on Meta going into a Friday expiration, and the 2-hour crossing down would mean, hey, bad things can happen. And the sad part about this is if we curl down right away, even with this great close for Meta, if for whatever reason, if the BOJ actually puts it out and we get bad news and Meta starts to confirm down, it is showing a lot of weakness here for Meta. Even though we've piled up in this area, hey, if we get a fake out to the upside, all of that can be distributed in the other direction. So I don't think Meta is the absolute best thing to have started a position. Obviously, if I have positions down here, I'm happy that the stock is up here. But this is more of a, hey, this to me looks a little bit risky, even though I'm pretty bullish on Meta. I would not really want to myself open up a position as far as today goes for Meta to see more upside. And we do have weekly expected moves getting violated once again. So just be cautious with Meta is all I'm saying here. This is a very bullish look as you've piled up in this area, almost making that cup and handle to go up. I mean, it looks fantastic, but I don't want to be tricked by it into saying, okay, now I'm going to go bullish on it when I see a bunch of reversal signals forming. I think the opportunity was more at the lows or down in here when we actually found that double bottom trade setup where we saw that great move. It was a fantastic trade, but right now you're outside of weekly expected moves. And the last time you were outside of weekly expected moves, this happened. So I'm not willing to weigh that risk at this point. I will be patient and look for a better opportunity. Now, Microsoft is booming, and we have another stock outside of a weekly move. So you are seeing craziness, and the craziness can continue, right? This is a short squeeze, so shorts will fuel this, and it won't be until the shorts are convinced completely, at least the bears out there, until they're convinced completely that the market cannot go down, well, then you're going to go up, right? So until we get maybe even to higher levels and then people are convinced, hey, the market can't go down, that's usually when it starts to go down, actually. So kind of like the someone in the chat was saying, don't follow the herd, do the opposite of the herd. And I think that's a fine thing to say. At this moment, we can see that the 2 hour is pretty up there. So we know we're in a positive trend. So what did we say about Microsoft if it did break out of the zone? What would be a great thing to do? It would be a great thing to reach down and find those buyers. And the good part about this is we were talking down in these levels, we were talking about the head and shoulders that could set up here for Microsoft. And we actually did not create that shoulder. Now, sometimes you will notice that if you make that sporadic move, you'll actually go back and make the right shoulder that could have been. And so we'll pay attention if we do make a dip down in this zone, because that's how you like to break out of these zones, right? You like to break out, you like to see that retest, and then maybe you can head in the upward direction again, and that would just be a continuation of the positive trend. How likely as of right now for Microsoft are we to curl down that 2 hour chart? Well, as of right now, you don't really have those divergences. You would say they are forming. You could do a rejection divergence here in some way. That's why we have the signal line up as of right now for the RSI to help us out, because things are moving pretty fast. We do have a daily expected move. So if you have a daily expected move, if you're part of Patreon, you see a daily expected move, it goes up to these areas and then it crosses down, or maybe it goes through that and then crosses back down, and you see this on your MACD and RSI. Ooh, if you start to see this, I'd just be a little cautious, because that is a little hint that, hey, we could experience that 2 hour pullback right now. So just be paying attention to it. Microsoft seems to be getting a little frothy to the upside. Great move, though, so far from Microsoft, and it's playing out really how we like to see it. I mean, down here at the lows, we had the 30-minute divergence, we had the 2 hour divergence across, so it makes total sense that this is playing out to the upside, and it's actually behaving even better than I thought it would. The last thing I will point out for Microsoft was the positioning of the MACD down here did have us leaning towards, hey, a potential lower high, but we don't necessarily see those signals up here. So one thing just to be aware of in case we do get some bad news is just, does the daily chart actually cross on the MACD? Does it actually cross through this center? Okay, this is a very bullish move, so I don't want people to be convinced stock market crash, stock market crash. If that were to happen, it would overall, according to our signals right now, be more of a black swan moment. And AMC not able to turn up on a daily chart. Great to get a tweet from Roaring Kitty, and if you're really trying to read into that tweet, I think it just means, I mean, his play overall. I think it's just his play overall. If you're reading into that tweet, I think it means he's holding on to GME. GME is the only one, and overall, I think it's just like, hey, he thinks the move is going to happen eventually. He's not saying it's going to happen right now, but there are some indications that it could be connected to the yen carry trade, so we'll pay attention to that. Now, this has not crossed up. Do we have anything in here to suggest that we're creating a strong base for this to see positivity? And that's where we just pull into a 30-minute chart and we go, yeah, okay, this is dipping down, but it's getting below the 5-day moving average. Honestly, at this point, you had some hope that this was going to round out and make the next move higher, but at this point, it's very, very choppy. So we have to pay attention to the fact that the 2 hour is close to crossing. If the 2 hour does cross, we can end up cutting this low, going to make a new one, and you guys know I'm still paying attention to somewhere around 292 in the month of January. So if you want to see something crazy, you got to see something absolutely crazy and get a move above 412 by tomorrow close, and then we'll give you new levels to pay attention to for next week for AMC. As we look over at GME, now that's the one experiencing some positivity. Is it out of the woods yet? Well, it's doing some good things, right? It's getting that counter trend move. We pointed out the 30-minute divergences as well, right? This is where, after we saw one more dip down, we were starting to point out that there's 30-minute divergences that could lead to a 2-hour pop. And now we have seen that 2-hour pop. We said the most likely thing for this, if it does get a 2-hour pop, is to fail. This needs to most likely confirm like, hey, I am a strong base. If we can take care of all that, over the next couple of trading sessions, that would be fantastic. A strong base on the 2-hour is what I'm looking for GME. Why am I looking for a strong base for GME on the 2-hour? Because the daily is still close enough to positive territory that could be a great thing if that turned up. So I want to see a strong base here and then see that curl up into positive territory. But something I wanted to point out here, you're not close to breaking through 3009. We're going to update that level on Sunday. But something I wanted to point out is we did have signals, right? We did have signals again. And notice that when you had signals, you get a tweet. When you have signals, you then get news. That's how this game really works, and you'll see it more times than not, right? Things don't make random moves. People move their money. The reason that we get these type of signals is because people see things before you do. People hear things before you do. Someone has more information than you, and they decide to put money in, and that's what causes the weakness in momentum. So all we're doing by paying attention to momentum is seeing if the sellers are getting weaker and the buyers are starting to step in, and that's what happened with GME. And then you got a little piece of news to help you get this thing going a little bit here. But still, at this moment, the 2-hour curling down, I would be very aware of that because that might test this low, even go make a new one. If we can make a strong base, we will be mentioning it on this channel. And look at you sticking it out till the end so you can get some volatility. Hey, I appreciate you sticking it out to the end. Thank you so much for liking and sticking around to the end. You're awesome. And this is the signal that we were posting over on Patreon, and we even put a little video out to talk about it as we're at weekly expected moves. The 2-hour is rejecting here. This is a rejection as of right now on the 2-hour, and we do have certain signals, and I think this is actually the cleanest on an hourly. I know I showed it on Patreon on the 30-minute, and you can see that. And I'd still be paying attention to the 30-minute if the trade is going to go wrong, right? If we're not going to be able to take back the 5, this isn't going to reverse around and start some kind of uptrend on the 30-minute. We would see a rejection that curls us back down into negative territory. But I'm actually paying attention to this one. I really like the look of the hourly chart. And you notice some key things here of things that we talk about in the course. And that's why this is awesome. A lot of the time, people ask me all the time, they'll be like, there's divergence. And I'll go, yes, but it's only on one indicator. You can read into it, but that just means it's a weaker signal than if they were at the same time. So be aware if that fails. We see an easy little channel, little flag here, and it drops back down. Okay, but what does it do next? It holds up better, and then people start to hedge. It looks like people are starting to hedge. Why would they hedge? That's what's happening here. Bigger people, as the market goes and makes that new all-time high, we do not see VIX really tank here to suggest that, especially at the end of the day. I mean, look at the end of the day here. We got a major uptick in the SPY at the end of the day. In the last 10 minutes, right? We saw a major buying come in at the end of the day. And notice what volatility did. It did not drop dramatically off or anything like that and make a new low. It held up better. And look at the divergence now. You have triple divergence on the MACD. You have a divergence on the RSI at the same time. So this is why we're paying attention. This is saying there is potential for us to see that 2-hour pullback even going into tomorrow. Now, this signal, nothing in the market is guaranteed, right? Things can go wrong. And that's why we really talk about that in the course, right? That's why we teach that, because you need to be seeing that if this 30-minute if this signal is just not going to play out, the 30-minute could turn down, and you need to be aware of that. You always want to pay attention to how you can get screwed. It will make you a better trader if you learn how to manage these trades. So the main takeaway here is overall, let's stick to the most probable things, which is most likely this is a very bullish move that is going to see a 2-hour pullback at some point, and we can't really tell when exactly that point will be because we are in a short squeeze. And once you start to understand that, you start to unlock some patience within you. You really unlock yourself as a powerful trader. The most simple way to talk about this is the most probable thing to happen is this is a very strong move on the 2-hour. The 2-hour is dramatically into positive territory, so the next opportunity might just be whatever this wants to do. I don't really care. I can pay attention to weekly expected moves next week. I can see that dip down on the 2-hour and curl back up into positive territory and be just fine. And I don't have to stress out a ton about it. We executed the plan. We even said in these areas, hey, let's target next week's weekly expected move. We get there and some. So your runners are loving this. And now we're going to see most likely a pullback sometime in the near future on the 2-hour chart. If that's going to be more dramatic, we are aware of the really dangerous side, which is if the daily MACD ends up curling down here. So now we're aware of both sides. We're aware of how this thing most likely would go higher, how this thing could trick everyone and end up going extremely lower. And now we just have to sit back and watch the signals closely, trust our signals, and execute the next plan. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for leaving a like. Thank you guys for subscribing. You guys are always fantastic about that. If you truly want to learn, if you truly want to unlock yourself, if you missed out on this and you wonder why we were in at these levels, get the course down in the description. You only have 8 days left to get that course for only $100. I always suggest the full technical analysis course, and you can take that. You can come to the live show. You can ask questions. And if you have questions before you buy the course, come into the live show tomorrow. I would love to look at a stock for you. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a fantastic night. Daily expected moves up on Patreon. Make sure to get those up on your charts if you're a Patreon member, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.